The radiator clicked once, then twice, like it was clearing its throat. I stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing out a chipped mug I hadn't used in months, and the sound just kept going. Little metallic stutters behind me, while my phone sat screen up on the table, face bright with a text I hadn't opened yet. From my ex. Subject line, holiday schedule. But it wasn't her words I was afraid of. It was my son's. My name's Andrew, and this year I bought a Christmas tree for a kid who said he didn't want to spend the holidays with me. Not in those exact words, but words don't always need to be exact to cut deep. I don't know how other divorced dads do it, the ones who always seem to be at peace, with their shared calendars and mature co-parenting routines. I want to believe I tried. I really do. Maybe if you asked Elise, my ex-wife, she'd say I gave up too soon, or that I only fought for the parts of fatherhood that didn't inconvenience me. But that's the problem with being the one left behind. Your version of the story never sounds as clean. It's been 4 years since the divorce. Our son, Mason, was 6 when we split. He's 10 now, 10 going on 25, if you hear him talk about school or ask what he wants for Christmas. And here's the part I can't seem to admit to anyone except this screen. I think I started losing him the moment Elise met Greg. Greg is fine, annoyingly fine. The kind of man who volunteers to coach Pee-wee soccer even though he doesn't have a clue about the game. The guy who knows when Spirit Week is, who helps Mason build cardboard castles for school projects and shows up to every parent-teacher night wearing a Patagonia vest and fresh coffee breath. I wanted to hate him. Still do, sometimes. But what I feel isn't really hate. It's fear. Because Mason, my kid, my flesh and blood, looks up to him in ways he used to look up to me. 2 weeks before Christmas, I was at the mall picking out wrapping paper. I'd already bought the gifts. The Nintendo Switch game Mason had circled in the Target catalog, the hoodie with his favorite YouTuber's logo, and a set of wireless earbuds he kept mentioning, like he was trying to convince the heir to buy them. I even threw in a Nerf gun, even though Elise hates them. Part of me wanted to remind Mason that fun could still be found in the house with the creaky stairs and microwave dinners. That Dad's house wasn't just the in-between weekends place. I got the text while I was comparing Santa prints on rolls of clearance wrap. Elise. Hey, just confirming, are you still okay with only having Mason the 26th to 28th this year? He asked to stay here for Christmas Day with Greg and me. Just wanted to make sure we're aligned. No emoji, no apology. Just the kind of message you send when you think everyone already agrees. I didn't respond, not because I didn't know what to say, but because the mall had gotten quiet, suddenly, and the roll of wrapping paper in my hand felt heavier than it should have. I left without buying anything. It wasn't supposed to go like this. We had an agreement when we split. Alternate holidays. 1 year he'd wake up under my roof on Christmas morning, the next under hers. Last year, Elise got Christmas. Mason opened his presents at her place and came to mine on the 26th. This year, it was my turn. I'd already cleared my work schedule, booked tickets to the Lights Festival, even bought special marshmallows for the hot chocolate I make every year, because Mason once said the peppermint ones made it feel more like Christmas. But he didn't want that this year. He wanted Greg. I waited 3 days before responding to Elise. In that time, I started wrapping the presents I'd already bought. Carefully, neatly. I even used the good scissors. I folded the corners like Mason used to when I taught him how to wrap his mom's birthday gifts. When I finally replied, it wasn't out of anger, it was out of necessity. Me. Hey, can we talk about the holiday schedule in person? I'd rather not just agree over text. She replied 10 minutes later. Elise. Sure. Do you want to come by on Sunday? Greg can take Mason out for a bit, so we can talk. Greg can take Mason out. That part stuck. Sunday came, gray and wet. The kind of December drizzle that clings to your coat and fogs your glasses. I parked in front of Elise's house, a 2-story colonial on a cul-de-sac with a perfectly trimmed lawn and a decorative wreath on the door that probably cost more than my entire Christmas dinner budget. Greg's SUV wasn't in the driveway. I took that as a small win. Elise met me at the door, her hair in a loose braid, wearing the sweatshirt Mason had made for her in art class. "Snow much love," it said in crooked fabric paint, with a snowman where the O should be. "You want coffee?" she asked, already turning. I followed her inside. Everything smelled like cinnamon and new furniture. "I'm okay," I said. She sat on the armrest of the couch, arms folded. "So, holiday schedule?" "Yeah." "You got the message, right?" "I did," I said. Then, after a pause, "I just wanted to hear it from you." She looked at me, not unkindly, just with that face people wear when they've already moved on, and they think you should too. "Mason asked," she said. "We weren't going to suggest anything. He brought it up on his own." "What did he say?" "He said he wanted to stay here. That Christmas felt more familiar this way." That word, familiar, felt like someone was pressing their thumb into my chest. "Elise," I said quietly, "it's supposed to be my year." "I know." "Then why?" "Because he asked." I didn't speak for a minute. Then I asked the question I'd been holding on to, like a splinter under my tongue. Did he say he didn't want to come to my place? Or did he say he wanted to be with Greg? Elise hesitated. "He said he wanted to spend Christmas morning with Greg. Said Greg makes breakfast and plays Christmas music and..." I stood up, not suddenly, just enough to make the room feel smaller. "I do that too," I said. "I do all of that too." "I'm not saying you don't." "He's 10, Elise. He's not deciding custody." She looked up at me. "He's not, but he's old enough to have preferences. And it's not about custody. It's about what makes him happy." I almost said something then, something I'd regret. But Mason's voice came floating down the stairs. He was back. I left before he saw me. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the presents I'd wrapped. They looked ridiculous now. Too much tape. The corners all wrong. Like a sad Pinterest dad trying too hard to win points in a game he didn't know he was losing. I didn't text Elise again. Instead, I waited for Mason's next weekend visit. Our normal schedule was still in place, every other Friday through Sunday. And this time, I planned to ask him directly. Ask him why. When he showed up that Friday, he looked taller. Or maybe just distant. Kids grow fast, but distance grows faster. We were in the car, pulling out of his mom's driveway, when I asked, "So, Mom told me you wanted to stay with them for Christmas this year." Mason nodded, looking out the window. "You know it's my year, right?" "Yeah." Silence. I like it there," he said finally. "Greg makes pancakes with whipped cream, and we watch Elf, and he lets me put the star on the tree." "You've done all that at my place too," I said gently. "Yeah, but it's different." "How?" He paused. "I don't know. It just is." I tried to keep my voice even. "Do you not like coming to my place anymore?" "It's not that." "Then what is it, Mace?" He looked at me then. "I like Greg. I like how it feels there. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I'd rather be there for Christmas." There it was. Not yelled, not angry, just honest. I'd rather be there. With him, not me. That night, after Mason went to sleep, I sat on the couch and stared at the blinking lights on the tree I decorated alone. One bulb had gone out. The whole strand looked dimmer. The bulb that went out never got replaced. I had the spare. I knew where it was, back of the kitchen drawer next to some old batteries, rubber bands, and a half-dead Sharpie. But I didn't move. I just sat there, watching the lightless spot in the middle of the tree, like fixing it would somehow make the rest of it worse, like it was the only honest thing left standing in my apartment. Mason slept in the next room, or at least he was trying to. I could hear him turning over. He always did that when something was on his mind, fidgeted with his blankets, rustled, the sheets. I used to think it was the mattress, so I bought a better one. Didn't help. You can't buy peace. The next morning, I made French toast. Not frozen, not reheated, fresh. Used the cinnamon swirl bread he used to love, whipped the eggs with cream instead of milk, and fried it just the way he liked. A little brown on the edges, soft in the center. He took 3 bites and said he wasn't that hungry. "It's good," he added quickly, probably sensing the silence that followed. I nodded. "No worries." He picked at it a little more, then pushed his plate aside. "Can we go to Target later?" "For what?" "Gift for Greg. Mom's taking me shopping later this week, but I want to get him something separate. Just for me." I swallowed hard. "Sure." He smiled. "Thanks, Dad." And then he stood up and went to the couch, where he turned on Disney Plus. Like it was a normal Saturday. Like I wasn't sitting at the table trying to remember when I'd stopped being the man he looked up to. We went to Target. He wandered the aisles with purpose, stopping at things I knew weren't for Greg. A Hot Wheels track, a candy dispenser, a 60 Nerf blaster, before finally settling on a set of grill tools. Stainless steel, wrapped in a fake leather case. "Greg's been trying to learn how to barbecue," Mason said. "He keeps burning everything." "That'll help then," I said. Mason nodded. As we walked toward checkout, he looked up at me. "You think he'll like it?" "Yeah," I said. "He will." He paused, then added, "I wanted to get you something too, but Mom said it's your year to get me stuff." I laughed, but it was hollow. "You don't have to get me anything, Mace." "I want to." "That's enough then." Later that night, we played Mario Kart. He still liked beating me on Rainbow Road, still shouted when he fell off a cliff, still reached for the popcorn between rounds. For a few hours, it felt like the old days, like the Christmas mornings when he used to wake me up too early, dragging his blanket behind him like a cape, like the times we'd both wear matching pajamas and pretend not to hear Elise laughing in the background. But then 10 o'clock hit, and he stood up. "I'm tired," he said. I looked at him. "Already?" "I gotta call Mom." "Okay." He walked into the hallway with his phone. I muted the TV and listened to the faint hum of his voice. Couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the rhythm. The soft laugh he reserved for her. The casual "yeah" that meant he was feeling safe and warm and seen. And I realized something in that moment. He didn't sound like that with me anymore. Sunday drop-off always sucked. We didn't say much on the ride. He scrolled his phone, headphones in, nodding to music I couldn't hear. I didn't try to talk, just let the silence sit between us like a third passenger. When we pulled into Elise's driveway, Mason finally looked up. "Thanks for the gift run." "Of course." He opened the door, then paused. "You think maybe we could still do something after Christmas?" "Of course," I said again. "Anytime." "Cool." He hopped out, slammed the door gently, and jogged up the steps. Elise opened the door before he even knocked. She always did that, like she was waiting for him, tracking the exact minute he'd come home. She waved at me. I waved back. Then, I drove home with the heat blasting and the windows fogging up so bad I had to keep wiping the windshield with my sleeve. The next week crawled. My office was dead quiet. Nobody wants their taxes sorted before the new year, and half my clients were on vacation. I reorganized my filing cabinet, cleaned out the fridge in the break room, even vacuumed under my desk. But nothing filled the space. Evenings were worse. I'd come home, see the wrapped gifts under the tree outside, and feel like I was hosting a party nobody RSVP'd to. I stopped turning on the Christmas lights, didn't light the candles, skipped the marshmallows in the hot chocolate. What was the point? On Christmas Eve, I finally opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving since last year. I poured a glass, sat on the couch, and stared at the TV without turning it on. Around 9, my phone buzzed. Elise. Merry Christmas Eve. Mason says hi. Attached was a photo. Mason in flannel pajamas, holding up a plate of sugar cookies. Greg stood beside him, wearing a Santa hat, flour on his cheek, and a goofy grin like he'd just won a pie-eating contest. They looked like a postcard. I zoomed in on Mason's face. He looked happy. Christmas morning was quiet. I didn't open any of the gifts. Just sat in my robe, made coffee, and watched snow fall outside the window. I told myself not to check my phone. I checked anyway. No messages. I waited until noon, then called Elise. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey," she said. "Merry Christmas." "Same to you. Just checking in. Wanted to see how Mason's doing." "He's good. Just opened gifts." "Nice." Silence. "I'll let him know you called," she said. "You think I could talk to him now?" More silence. "Actually, they're doing a Zoom with Greg's parents right now, but I'll have him call you later." "Okay," I said, but my voice sounded thin. "He really does love you, you know." "Yeah, I know. But I didn't. Not today." He didn't call that day. Or the next. When I picked him up on the 26th, he was polite. Not distant, but different. Like the gap between us had become a given. Like a seasonal shift, inevitable, uncontested. We ate leftovers. Watched the movie we were supposed to see before the holidays. He opened his presents like they were chores. "I already got this game," he said about the Switch cartridge. "Greg gave it to me." "Oh," I said. "Sorry. It's okay. I'll just keep this one at your place." He smiled like he was being generous, like he was giving me a gift. That night, while he was asleep, I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. I didn't know what I was writing at first. Just typed, "My son said he'd rather spend Christmas with his stepfather than with me." Then I stared at it for 10 minutes, hands hovering over the keys. I wanted to write a rant, a monologue, a list of all the ways I'd tried. Instead, I wrote about the cinnamon toast he didn't eat, the wrapping paper he didn't notice, the star on the tree that never got touched. I wrote about a 10-year-old boy who didn't do anything wrong, except grow closer to someone who showed up before I figured out how to stay. That was 2 nights ago. Mason's gone again now. House is quiet. That bulb on the tree is still out. And I'm not sure if I'm holding on to hope, or just holding on to the shape of what used to be. It was January 2nd when I realized the holiday had truly passed me by. No photos with Mason, no wrapping paper strewn across the floor, no pancake crumbs on the counter or hot chocolate mugs left half-finished beside the couch. Just a quiet apartment with a dying tree, one burnt-out light bulb, and a Nerf gun that never got unboxed. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was knowing I'd been replaced. And the kid doing the replacing didn't even mean to hurt me. Mason had gone back to Elise's after our 3-day post-Christmas window. I didn't press him, Didn't mention the game he already had, or the unopened hoodie, or the lack of thanks for anything he'd unwrapped here. I just dropped him off. He said goodbye with a half smile and a "see you later," like I was a cashier he'd see again next week. No hug, no backward glance. I sat in the car a full 5 minutes after Elise's door closed. The engine was still running. So was my brain. Everything in me wanted to march back up those steps and ask her, how long has this been happening? When did he start calling Greg Dad when I wasn't around? Why didn't you tell me I was losing him? But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew, and confronting Elise wouldn't change a thing. A week into January, I went back to work. My coworker, Dave, waved at me from his cubicle with a cheery, "How was Christmas with the kiddo?" I hesitated too long. "Good," I lied. "Quiet, but good." Dave didn't press. Why would he? We weren't close, just shared a hallway and a stale coffee pot. The truth sat in my throat all morning, like something swallowed wrong. Around 11, I checked my phone for the 100th time. Still no message from Mason. No, "Hey Dad," or photo of a cool Lego build. Just silence. I opened my email, thinking maybe Elise had sent something. She hadn't. I opened the draft I'd started on Christmas night, the one that just said, "My son said he'd rather spend Christmas with his stepfather than with me." And for the first time, I didn't add anything. I just deleted it. That Saturday, I stopped by the hardware store for some shelf brackets. Not because I needed shelves, because I needed something to do with my hands. I was halfway through the aisle when I saw Greg. He was wearing a puffed vest and pushing a cart with what looked like a new grill cover and some patio lights. He didn't see me at first. Then he looked up, did a double take, and smiled. "Andrew." "Hey." I nodded. "Greg." We both stood there, awkwardly, the cart between us like some unspoken buffer. "Backyard upgrade?" I said, nodding at the grill cover. He chuckled. "Trying. Mason wants to build a fire pit now." "Of course he does," I said. Greg hesitated. "Hey, I hope everything was okay with Christmas. I know he stayed with us a little longer than planned." I raised my eyebrows. "Little longer?" "Yeah. Elise said you were fine with it, Bo." I looked away. "It's fine. Look, I know this whole situation isn't easy. I'm not trying to be his replacement." I finally looked him in the eye. "But you are," he blinked. "I'm not blaming you," I said. "But let's not pretend we both don't know what's happening." Greg shifted his weight. "He loves you, Andrew." "I know," I said. "He just doesn't look at me the way he used to." Greg didn't have a response for that. Neither did I. So we nodded stiffly, exchanged vague goodbyes, and went our separate ways. I never bought the brackets. Back home, I took down the Christmas tree. I didn't wait until mid-January like usual. Just yanked the dead string of lights off the branches, packed the unused gifts into the hall closet, and swept up the pine needles like I was erasing evidence of something. I kept the Nerf gun, though. Left it out on the shelf in the living room. I don't know why. Maybe it was stubbornness. Or maybe I wanted something that still reminded me I was someone's dad, even if the dad he wanted these days wore a Patagonia vest and burned his hot dogs. Later that night, Elise texted. "Elise, Mason's been talking about wanting to try Little League again this spring. Just a heads up." I stared at the screen. He hadn't mentioned it to me. Me. "That's great. Let me know when registration opens. I'd like to be there." No response. 2 hours later, she sent a link to the sign-up form. No thanks. No good to hear. Just logistics. That's what we were now. Logistics. 2 weeks later, it was my weekend with Mason again. He showed up with a duffel bag and a mouthful of stories about a classmate who got in trouble for trading Pokemon cards in math class. I smiled and nodded and asked questions, but the space between us was still there. He didn't notice the missing tree, didn't ask about the unopened gifts that had disappeared from under it, didn't mention Christmas at all. Saturday night, I made homemade pizza, our old tradition. We used to pile the toppings way too high and argue about who got the bigger slice. This time, he ate 2 pieces without looking up from his tablet. "You want to watch something later?" I asked. He shrugged. "Maybe." "Something funny? Can we just chill?" "Sure." He went to his room and closed the door. I sat on the couch and listened to the faint hum of whatever show he was watching behind it. And for the first time in years, I didn't follow. Sunday morning, I tried something different. I pulled out the Nerf gun, loaded it, knocked on his door. "Hey, Mace." "Yeah?" I flung the door open and shot a dart that hit him square in the forehead. He yelped. "Hey!" I grinned. "This means war." He scrambled for the backup Nerf I'd stashed under his bed months ago, and we spent the next 20 minutes chasing each other through the apartment like we were both 6 again. He laughed. Really laughed. Something broke open in my chest. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me that I still had pieces of him, even if they were fewer and further between. Later that afternoon, while packing up, he asked, "You ever been to a Little League game before?" I nodded. "A few." "You think you'll come to mine?" "Everyone I'm allowed to." He smiled. "Greg says he's gonna help me practice." I nodded. "Cool. Maybe I can too." "Yeah," he said, zipping up his bag. "That'd be fun." He didn't say it like a promise, just like an idea, but it was more than I'd gotten in weeks. After I dropped him off, I sat in the car again. Didn't cry, didn't rage, just breathed. And thought, maybe I'm not the favorite house. Maybe I never will be again. But maybe, just maybe, there's still a way to be part of the team. The following week, I bought a glove. Not for Mason, for me. It had been years since I'd worn one, probably back in college, tossing a ball around with friends between exams. But something about buying that glove felt like putting a stake in the ground, like saying, I'm still here. I wanted Mason to see it when he came over next. I didn't say anything, didn't text Elise, or try to coordinate practice. I just left it on the couch. Let it sit there, loose-laced and open like it was waiting for someone to pick it up. Waiting, like I've been. That weekend started differently. When Mason came through the door, he noticed the glove right away. "You got one?" he asked. I nodded. "Figured I'd need one if I'm gonna help you warm up." He grinned. "Nice. Greg's glove is too small. He borrowed it from his brother and it smells like old fries." I laughed. "Mine's new. No fry smell. Promise." We spent half the afternoon in the small park behind my apartment, building. The grass was patchy. A few ducks wandered near the pond, but it was ours. He threw with a little too much shoulder. I corrected him gently. "Try less wrist," I said. "Let your arm do the work." "Like this?" "Exactly." He nodded, repeating the motion. For the first time in a while, I felt useful again. Not just present, essential. That night, we made popcorn and watched The Sandlot. Mason hadn't seen it before. Halfway through, he said, "You kind of talk like that old guy." "You mean the narrator?" "Yeah." I took it as a compliment. He leaned against the arm of the couch, head resting on the throw pillow he always stole from my bed. When the movie ended, he stayed put. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I know I stayed with Greg for Christmas, but it wasn't like I don't like being here." I swallowed. "Okay. I just didn't want to hurt your feelings." You didn't. I lied. He looked at me sideways. You sure? I nodded. I promise. He turned back toward the TV, quiet for a long time. I liked that movie, he said. I did too. The next morning, while making pancakes, I got a text from Elise. Elise. Hey, Greg's work is sending him out of town next month for a week. Would you be up for having Mason that Thursday to Tuesday? I stared at the screen, then glanced over at Mason, who was drawing something on the chalkboard wall I'd painted years ago in a fit of cool dad inspiration. He was sketching a dinosaur, tongue sticking out slightly like it always did when he concentrated. Me. Absolutely. She replied quickly. Elise. Thanks. Appreciate it. For once, it didn't feel like a handoff. It felt like trust. The next few weeks became a rhythm. Catch in the park, sandwiches in the truck bed, homework at the table while I made spaghetti. He started leaving little things at my place again. An extra hoodie, a phone charger, a sketchbook. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Then came the surprise. Late February. Cold, wet, miserable. Mason was curled up on the couch playing his Switch when he looked up and said, "Hey, are we doing anything this Easter?" I turned down the volume on the TV. "Not yet. Why?" He shrugged. "Just wondering." "You want to?" "Maybe, like an egg hunt or something." I grinned. "You're not too old for that?" He smirked. "Greg says I am." "But you don't think so?" He shook his head. "Then we're doing one," I said. "Biggest plastic eggs I can find, full of jelly beans and mini Snickers. No carrots." Deal. I bought the eggs that night. Went a little overboard, to be honest. But it wasn't about the candy. It was about claiming something back. A piece of a holiday. A memory that wouldn't be shared with Greg. One that started here. With me. With us. But progress isn't a straight line. The next weekend, Mason seemed distracted. Kept checking his phone. Was short with his answers. At dinner, I asked him if something was wrong. "Nah," he said, pushing peas around his plate. "You sure?" He sighed. Greg said he might not be able to come to my first practice. His work's being annoying." Oh. I didn't say what I was thinking, but I'll be there. I never missed a weekend. I never checked out. Instead, I said, "That sucks. I know you were looking forward to that." He nodded. Then he added, "You'll still come though, right?" I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. That first practice was muddy and cold. I showed up early, brought gloves and a bucket of balls just in case. Mason arrived with Elise, who waved politely and hung back near the bleachers. Mason jogged over to me. "Coach says parents can help with warm-ups." "I'm on it," I said. We threw for 15 minutes. He was laughing again. One of the other dads looked over and asked, "You coaching?" "Just watching for now." "You've got a good arm," he said. "So does your boy." I wanted to correct him. Say, he's not just my boy. He has another man who fills that space too. But I didn't. Because right then, in that mud-soaked moment, I was the only dad Mason was looking at. After practice, Elise came over. "Thanks for helping him warm up," she said. He was really looking forward to it. "No problem." She hesitated, then added, "He talks about you more than you think." I didn't respond right away. Then, "Thanks for telling me." That night, Mason crashed on my couch watching The Simpsons. His head was on my shoulder by the second episode. When I carried him to bed, something I hadn't done in years, I realized how heavy he'd gotten, how tall, how much time had passed without me noticing. But I carried him anyway, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a visitor in his life. I felt like a parent again, A real one. Not the backup. Not the weekend stand-in. Just Dad. It was April when I finally took down the last of the holiday decorations. Yeah, I know. 4 months is too long to keep a string of white lights draped over the kitchen window. But I hadn't been ready before. I'd tell myself it was laziness, or that I forgot. But the truth was simpler. Those lights reminded me of what I didn't get, of what I thought I lost. But things change. Kids grow. And sometimes, if you stay long enough, quietly enough, without demanding anything in return, they come back. Easter Sunday was just the two of us. Elise and Greg were out of town, visiting Greg's sister, I think. Mason had the choice to go with them. He didn't. When Elise texted me about it weeks before, I had to read her message twice. Elise, Mason wants to do Easter with you this year. Says you promised an egg hunt with 0 carrots. I laughed so hard I dropped my phone. I went all out. Bought a plastic egg kit with glitter finishes and dinosaur stickers. Hid them around the apartment and the park behind my building. Stuffed them with candy and, in a few of the bigger ones, stuck in some bills folded like mini scrolls. The look on Mason's face when he found a 20 in the egg wedged behind the AC unit. Priceless. Did the Easter Bunny get a raise or something? He joked. Must have unionized, I said. He rolled his eyes, but I caught the grin. That night, we had ham sandwiches and leftover deviled eggs on the balcony. He leaned back in the folding chair, feet up on the rail, hoodie zipped tight, and said, I think this was my favorite Easter. I didn't even respond. I just let the moment hang there, warm and perfect. Little League was in full swing by May. I was the assistant coach now. It wasn't planned. Coach Dan just needed someone to wrangle the kids during batting practice, and I happened to be there every time anyway. Mason introduced me as my dad, Andrew. I'd be lying if I said that didn't hit deep. Not just dad, not only my real dad, just my dad. Like I belonged, like I never stopped. By the time summer rolled around, something had changed between us. It wasn't a big, dramatic thing, not a single conversation or teary moment. It was smaller than that. It was in the way Mason asked if we could start watching a show together every time I come over, or how he left his new cleats at my place so I don't forget them next time. Or the night he said, out of nowhere, "You make better grilled cheese than Greg." I almost cried into the frying pan. Then came July. We were in the car on the way to batting cages when Mason asked, "Can I stay with you for a part of Christmas this year?" I blinked. What? I was thinking, maybe like the night before, and then do breakfast, and then go to Mom's after lunch. I kept both hands on the wheel. You sure? He nodded. Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I nodded too, slow. Yeah, it'd be more than cool. He turned the volume up slightly on the radio. We didn't talk about it after that. We didn't need to. The rest of the year flew by. By fall, Mason had outgrown another pair of sneakers. I helped him pick out new ones. Elise didn't mind. We'd reached that place, civil, even cooperative. I saw Greg at the school fall carnival. He nodded. I nodded. That was it. No rivalry, no resentment. Just two men orbiting the same bright star. Then December came again. This time, I didn't buy the tree too early, didn't wrap the gifts before the month even started, didn't plan the entire holiday around an expectation I couldn't control. I waited for what Mason wanted. When he brought it up, "So, am I still coming over on Christmas Eve?" I almost laughed. "Of course," I said. "Got the peppermint marshmallows and everything." He grinned. Bet Greg doesn't have that. He's still burning hot dogs? Worse, He tried to make stuffing last week. It came out like concrete. We both cracked up. Christmas Eve at my place was quiet. Just us. No photos sent to anyone. No performative gift giving. We made hot cocoa, watched Home Alone, and played Mario Kart. At midnight, I caught him yawning, and he stood up. "I'm sleeping on the couch," he said, grabbing a pillow. "You want the bed?" I asked. He shook his head. "Couch feels more like tradition." Fair enough. Christmas morning came gently. No loud surprises. No chaos. Just the smell of pancakes and peppermint in the air, and the sound of Mason's feet on the floorboards. He wandered in, hair messy, hoodie half-zipped, and mumbled, "Merry Christmas." I handed him a plate. "It's your year to put the star on the tree." His eyes lit up. I almost forgot. "Glad you didn't." He climbed onto the step stool and placed it gently at the top. We stood back, looking at the tree together. Then he said, quietly, almost too casually, "This is where I wanted to be." I didn't say anything for a second, just reached over and ruffled his hair. "Me too, bud." I've learned not to measure fatherhood by holidays or custody days. It's not about who gets the morning, who makes the better pancakes, or who gets named in the school projects. It's about who stays, even when they're not chosen, even when the couch stays empty on Christmas, even when your name is said more like a question than a comfort. I stayed, and this year, he came back. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.